Welcome to Rauta. This video is done in commercial collaboration with our sponsor, Steelfest. Hello and welcome to Rauta's Industrial Reviews. No metal this time. This one is a one-man project with an artist known as Wooly, operated project called Colossloth. Kind of a funny wordplay when you really think about it, but I don't know if that kind of explains what's going on or what kind of feeling you're supposed to get out of it. But be it as may, this one is some kind of industrial thing. When I say some kind, I am merely trying to sum up that this is not like a one-trick pony that is goes way beyond than your typical industrial pumping and jumping that is tempos and all that stuff what you might be thinking of. Now, industrial being as vast as genre or even bigger than metal music should give you a little bit of indication that no two artists sound the same. And while I am still, after so many years, I mean technically speaking decades, after still listening to industrial as a newbie, that is, I never got my head really, drenched into the genre. That is, I have been experiencing various bands throughout the years of that, but you know, when it comes to metal and all that stuff, I'm more like a virgin approaching this interesting but also somewhat challenging genre known as industrial. Now, depending on which kind of background you come from, obviously your mileage may vary and you might have totally different opinion or how to say experience about the given genre. Some might be thinking big names such as Ministry or Rammstein when we're talking about industrial, but when we go more into the underground section, I guess it's kind of safe to say that a lot of those bands are not exactly industrial rock, which might be the thing when we're talking about the aforementioned bands or bands like Fear Factory. So industrial rock or industrial metal definitely quite different when we're talking about somewhat pure industrial, and some of that comes with beating patterns, that is percussions or even drums used, but there are acts where that is kind of not present at all. I mean, it's more like purely focusing on soundscapes that are not exactly made by the rules of the music. I mean, think about guitar melodies or just melodies in general or vocals or whatever. So for example, Colossloth, which is here presented with one album in this review called Promethean Meat, came out already in 2022. This one is a curious case. I mean, I have the physical CD here at home, not here in Spain though. So I cannot really do the unboxing. This is as close as you can get to that with this review. And this is labeled as industrial slash noise slash esoteric. Now, I guess to a lot of people, esoteric doesn't really describe music at all. It's more like a genre you are talking about when we're talking about books, literature, and all that stuff. But I guess it kind of sums up certain feelings with this one. But I guess closer it is when we're talking about industrial slash noise, because there are parts where this gets really, really noisy. That is almost flirting with the genre or even power electronics for that matter. But mainly this is industrial in a kind of a stripped, bare-bone fashion. And my point about it is that this is a lot to do with some kind of a dronier aspects of the music. You will hear kind of a hissing and buzzing sounds. You will hear parts where just nothing is made by the rules of the music if you really think about those tempo patterns or, like said, guitar parts or whatever, even with the metal parts included on this particular album. So it's not just like one trick ponies happening and taking place here, but it's more like kind of a sonic journey to the world of industrial music. And some of this is actually quite fascinating. But once again, it totally depends what kind of a background you're coming from, what kind of angle you are having about industrial music. My favorite industrial things are bands like Rammstein. But then again, I also like droney music, and drone and ambient are not that far from industrial, except that they kind of are very very far away. But this is very very much context dependent, as much it is of course has something to do with your personal taste for music. Now, people who are very very experienced, for example, noise or drone or power electronics and that kind of industrial pretty much know what's going on. This is not exactly the kind of a rhythmic martial industrial where you might have this kind of a, you know, military-like approach to, those march tempos and whatnot done with the drums. You might know acts like Puissance, which is definitely in that territory, or something like Ordo Equilibrio, which is then again flirting with the kind of dead industrial things, but once again having a lot of parts where singing takes place and quite different. Now, where this gets more to my comment about being more bare bone is that this is more about being just instrumental, and the instruments here are something that are not that obvious. It's more like kind of a machine-made hissing and buzzing and all that stuff. And even though there are supposedly guitar-led parts, the thing here is they're not that obvious. It's not like this is played like with string instruments in their more traditional fashion, and that's where things get complicated. When you're assuming that Colossloth is doing some kind of a music to hum to, just thinking like humming to it, or whistling to it while cooking food, or I don't know, cleaning the apartment, it's not gonna fly, because this is more about those kind of machine-made soundscapes rather than your typical ways of doing music. So once again, this is kind of hard to describe so that it actually makes sense without listening to it. Now, given the style of the artist here and all that, this is not for everybody. It's kind of acquired taste, and you kind of have to have certain kind of interest to go this kind of on music, like I like to call a lot of dark ambient ones, especially those which are more minimal in nature. That is not much happening but humming and buzzing and all that stuff. But this is also a little bit more violent than your typical dark ambient, in the sense that while some of that is really drony and getting like more like background noise, hence the word ambient, I mean it's basically ambience. This is almost, compared to those, like if you're going into say some scrapyard or maybe construction site, more than that, factory even, and you have those different sounds coming from various parts of the whole factory, your environment, and that's when you kind of get used to it. I'll give an example of what I recently listened to. Now, a lot of people might not find this funny or anything like that at all, but recently I was in the city of Sevilla, and we were at the hotel having breakfast, and you have those toast machines, like where you just put your toast and it kind of goes around and then falls back, nicely done for you to just enjoy your morning loaves of bread and all that stuff. This machine kept constantly making these kind of squeaky noises, like. So to me, it was kind of like listening to some cool minimal album, like flirting with dark ambient and also industrial. But a lot of people probably just heard noise, the kind of background ambience. Why I'm mentioning this is because I find it fascinating. A lot of people wouldn't. Same goes with this album. To certain degrees, especially certain songs, I think there is a interesting atmosphere going on. But I would be lying if I said I was enjoying the album throughout the whole length, because there are parts where it just gets like too much out of my comfort zone, if you will, too much out of my territory, where it's more just kind of a going towards noisy parts rather than being this kind of a hissing and buzzing and humming industrial parts. All I'm saying is this is kind of a tough cookie to crack. You kind of have to embrace the certain kind of a minimal ambience with this album, and yet accept that this is not dark ambient but an industrial album. Whereas people who are looking for more rhythmic patterns or those aforementioned melodies, not to mention any kind of riffs, are just gonna find this like, what is going on here? So an acquired taste only kind of album, and even such, not for everybody. I find this fascinating, but also, like I said, kind of a hard to like. It's not too lengthy. It's just some 30 minutes and then some. So it's not like it's gonna take whole day to listen to it. So maybe give it a spin or two within an hour or so, and then you pretty much know whether you're gonna like it or not. At least give a couple of songs a go, and that should tell whether or not this is even roughly in your department cup of tea or so. And that's pretty much I can say about it. You will find links provided in the description box, so give it a listen or give it not. It's up to you, obviously. I can say mild recommendation to this one, but once again, it depends whether or not you're up for this kind of music to begin with. This being said, take care and see you soon with more reviews coming your way.